In South Korea, the subsurface oil pipeline network is around 1,200 kilometers long. Each week, crude oil is refined at numerous refineries before being piped to large cities. The so-called moles are individuals who bore into it. In order to siphon oil and profit from doing so, criminal Straw is interested in this industry. So he employs the renowned Drill Bit to complete the task. Jibsae, who is impersonating Drill Bit, turns there instead, and when he tries to use the same drill as the well-known mole, he makes a mistake that results in a leak. The warehouse explodes, and the guys just make it out alive. But Jibsae suffers burns to his legs. A few hours later, when the police go up to look into the crime scene, police officer Man Sik immediately recognizes the drill as belonging to Drill Bit, who he had previously detained while serving in the intel section. However, because he has little credibility left and does not inform the higher-ups of this, Man Sik asks his partner Sang-gu to assist him in conducting the inquiry on their own. Due to the high cost of the genuine Drill Bit, Straw visits Dae-han, the mole who delivered him the phony driller. Dae-han is physically assaulted by Straw, who then demands to see the genuine genius. Subsequently, Dae-han sets up a meeting with Dol-yi, the real Drill Bit. Man Sik and Sang-gu show up while they are discussing the specifics to accuse them of being responsible for the recent explosion, and demand that they reveal their legs, but the absence of scarring clears them of the charge. Man Sik then makes an attempt to persuade his supervisor that the moles will try again but is disregarded. Instead, Man Sik persuades Sang-gu to assist him in exploring all the nearby vacant structures. Returning to Dol-yi, he meets with Straw to do the task that Jibsae was unable to complete. Straw is so pleased with the outcome that he informs Dol-yi about an upcoming, larger task from a significant supporter. A few hours later, Dol-yi meets with this supporter, who turns out to be wealthy oil refinery owner Jian-woo. The project should be finished in a month, because Jian-woo wants him to dig some particularly risky holes, and obtain enough oil to fill the tanks of a factory that will be bulldozed in 50 days. Dol-yi fears that hurrying the project will make it fail, but Jian-woo persuades him to work on it by offering to pay him $1 million. The job is taking place in the hotel's basement, which will be shut down under the pretext that it is already filled. The team for the mission, which also includes the digger Gun Sab, the welder Jibsae, and the underground geography mapper Mr. Na, will be led by Dol-yi. Counter will keep an eye on the front desk, while the men are working to keep any curious onlookers away. She will sound an alarm to alert the crew if the police arrive at the scene. There is a caveat: even though they are receiving half of their salary up front, the contract is null and void if any of them check out of the hotel before the task is finished. Straw, who is posing as Jian-woo's bodyguard, takes away all of their phones. The team starts working right away while griping about the unpleasant stench brought on by the hotel's underground sewer system. There is conflict among them since Dol-yi believes he is superior to everyone else, but at least he pays attention to Mr. Na's local knowledge to dig where it is appropriate. Jian-woo is coping with a loan that he took out using his stocks as security. He uses $50 million of company cash to buy low rather than pay his debts, because he is confident that there will soon be an explosion that will allow them to sell high before they run into their first issue, a deposit high in lime. The team has done a respectable job of building the tunnel. Mr. Na desires to circumvent it because of how harmful its dampness makes things. Dol-yi believes there isn't enough time for a new route, and advises increasing assistance while continuing on the current course. Gun Sab tries to defuse the conflict by pointing out that they can zigzag the beams for optimal support. He accidentally cuts a cable while attempting to demonstrate, hitting Jibsae, who then wants to start a fight. Dol-yi beats him up and calls him names before lifting Jibsae's pants to reveal the scarring and prove that he is the imposter. Dol-yi believes he has won the debate and sends everyone back to work. Gun Sab urges Mr. Na to share, but he declines because the pills are so expensive. Mr. Na pauses to take a few. They discover a rock wall at the end of the tunnel after doing some more excavating. Although it may be broken, doing so would create a lot of strange noises. So Dol-yi instructs Jibsae to produce a lot of commotion in the karaoke room to mask it. Man Sik and Sang-gu are investigating every abandoned structure they can uncover in the meantime. When Sang-gu checks the hotel after Man Sik has located the location of the drilling that Dol-yi performed for Straw, he is shocked to see Counter because the building was supposed to be unoccupied. Counter explains that despite hitting the alarm when they recently reopened, the team didn't receive a warning due to a broken wire. She waits for Sang-gu to go down the hallway, so she can use the walkie-talkies to communicate with the team. Since she can't stop a cop from simply peeking around without raising suspicion, Jibsae's singing manages to divert Sang-gu long enough for the team to plug the hole and pretend to be working on the sewer system. By the time the officer reaches the basement, Sang-gu claims to have picked up Mr. Na several times from the station, when he became inebriated because he believes he has already met Dol-yi. Sang-gu leaves without discovering anything of interest, and Counter promptly descends to repair the alarm wires. Counter and Gun Sab get stuck in the tunnel when something goes wrong and explodes. Jibsae wants to take the opportunity to obtain their advance money and depart. Since he thinks they are dead, Dole-yi also wants to leave because they have exposed a gas pipe. Mr. Na, however, is unwilling to give up and begins searching for their employees, in case they are still alive. This turns out to be a smart move because Counter and Gunsab are actually still alive and still digging, so the three of them are able to create a hole to escape. Man Sick has contacted support in the interim to show them what he has discovered. His superior is very impressed and eventually agrees to deploy his troops to search the area for moles. Later, Dole-yi discovers Jibsei attempting to flee with his money. After hearing the alarm, Gunsab joins the beating after Dole-yi catches him and starts kicking him for nearly getting everyone in trouble. But Mr. Na intervenes to stop them from being too rough. Mr. Na tries to persuade Dole-yi to make an exception after Jibsei explains that he has an ill kid who needs the money for his treatment. But that's when Dole-yi realized something. Since there are cameras watching everyone's every move and Counter's job also includes notifying their supervisor if anyone defies the rules, he goes to visit Counter and she verifies she was the one who triggered the alarm. Speaking about the devil, Straw and his men arrive with Jian-woo to inform the team of the contract. He agrees to give them another chance, because no one was able to escape in the end, but they now have 10 days to complete the task if they want to live. After being tortured by the thugs for trying to flee, Jian-woo finally agrees to let Jibsei leave, in exchange for a secret phone and the obligation to keep Jian-woo informed of everything that occurs while they are at work. A further $100,000 will be paid to him if he performs well. The crew resumes its job, and Mr. Na continues to take his medication. He admits they are for cancer as the others keep bugging him to share. The police use metal detectors to search for them in the meantime, and when they finally get a response, they start using an excavator to dig. When Counter notices everything on the security cameras, he raises the alarm, and the team starts removing everything from the tunnel right away. When Dole-yi returns to retrieve some metal items they left behind, he is hit by a gas leak brought on by the police excavating, and cracks his ribs as he loses consciousness, while Counter checks on the cops, who are now departing after realizing they are tampering with the gas pipes. Mr. Na refuses to leave him behind and dons a mask to save him. Later, Mr. Na offers Dole-yi one of his medicines in exchange for a favor. He wants to visit the hospital to see how his wife is doing, because she is having surgery today and the cost needs to be covered. Both Counter and Dole-yi decline to put the deal at danger, but Dole-yi changes his mind later in the evening. He removes his watch and starts smashing the cellar floor to gain entrance to the sewers and assist Mr. Na in sneaking to the hospital. Dole-yi clarifies that he cannot compare himself to the dying man's final wish after Jibsei sees them, and calls them out for their hypocritical behavior. Jibsei accepts this justification and chooses to accompany them, so he can ask a doctor to examine his burned leg. The surveillance cameras catch Counter seeing this escape as well, but she chooses to repeat previous videos continuously rather than alert Jian-woo. This ploy appears to be successful because Jian-woo doesn't notice anything when he views the video on his iPad, but Jibsei destroys everything by texting him to explain what's happening. However, a loan shark arrives before Jian-woo can head to the hotel, and warns him that if he doesn't pay up, his life would be in jeopardy. Jian-woo simply responds by striking the man's head against the window many times. After rejoining the group, Mr. Na is astonished to see the ancient US Army sewer, which is filled with abandoned utility pipes. When they finally locate a manhole and escape, it is too late. Mr. Na's wife has already passed away when they arrive at the hospital. Sang-gu recognizes the debris as parts of the hotel floor, when a local woman reports that someone has been throwing construction waste in her garden and contacts the police. Man Sick prepares to look into the matter, since he cannot believe his spouse accepted the sewage explanation. While Dole-yi and Mr. Na return to the hotel, Jibsei makes the decision to stay at the hospital to have his leg examined. Sadly, Counter and Gunsab have already been taken hostage by Jian-woo, Straw, and the men that are waiting for them. Mr. Na begs for forgiveness by outlining the circumstances around his wife, but Jian-woo ignores him and kicks Mr. Na. Jian-woo threatens to hurt his mother if Dole-yi attempts to leave, because he no longer wants to work with him. The squad is forced to dig once more under Straw's direction, and this time, Counter is made to work with them as a punishment. Mr. Na becomes too ill to continue working, because Straw forces them to work too hard without taking breaks. But when Dole-yi stands up for Mr. Na, Straw becomes enraged and a fight breaks out. After winning, the team tries to leave to take Mr. Na to the hospital, but as they are about to depart, Straw's men show up to stop them. Dole-yi makes a hasty decision and grabs a welding machine and a gas tank to start a flame to scare the goons away. Sadly, Jian-woo, who is armed, also shows up. Mr. Na attempts to jump on him in order to grab the gun, and during the struggle, he is fatally shot. Jian-woo then warns Gunsab by shooting him in the shoulder, and when Dole-yi tries to attack him too, he too is shot. Man Sick and Sang-gu enter the hotel at that precise moment, setting off the alarm, allowing Jian-woo and his men to flee before being apprehended. When they are gone, Dole-yi opens his eyes to see that the bullet missed him, and instead struck the watch in his pocket. Together, he and Counter help Gun Sab stand up and make their getaway through the sewers. Man Sick discovers the drill while waiting for assistance, and is now more than ever certain that Drill Bit is responsible. The group arrives at Dae Han's house, where he has already sent Dol Yi's mother to a secure hiding location, right before he phones the crew to warn them once more, with dire consequences if they don't complete the assignment. Counter discloses that Jian Wu is doing all of this to pay a loan shark. Later, he phones Jibsei at the hospital to caution him about the police, and remind him to continue providing information. But it's too late. The police have arrived at the hospital. Dol Yi's intervention prevents Jibsei from turning on them, and forces him to rejoin the squad, in order to get revenge on Jian Wu, which allows him to flee. Dol Yi now devises a strategy to reroute the oil using the utility pipes. Mr. Na had mentioned, with the aid of Dae Han and his metal detector, to offer the oil in exchange for 5 million. Counter and Dol Yi first meet with Jian Wu. After receiving his approval, they set to work. While the guys are drilling, Counter install cameras in the sewer tunnels through a hole they make in the ground that Dae Han conceals with a container. As an excuse, Jibsei uses a break to meet with Straw and explain the situation. Dol Yi pursues him because he doesn't trust him, and witnesses him betraying the team. But he also learns something more important. Man Sick and Sang Gu are in the region. Since they have been paying attention to their phone signals, Dol Yi dashes into the woods to draw the police's attention, getting injured by a boulder in the process, while Jibsei returns to the pipeline and sets up a camera, so Jian Wu can spy on the officers. Dol Yi returns to the crew after losing the policeman, and prepares to finally reroute the oil. Counter notices the police arrive in the sewers, but there isn't enough time to halt the drilling, if they want to avoid being seen by the oil firm monitoring the pipe pressure. Plan B, which involves Gun Sab and Dae Han piercing a random wall, so that the police will see them and chase them out, is chosen by the crew. The drilling goes smoothly, but Dol Yi can't continue because of his agony, so he directs Jibsei to complete the last task so they may complete the job together, to send some oil to the tanks at the plant, where Jian Wu has assembled all of his potential customers. Dol Yi opens the valve. He confirms the oil is present by opening a tap as well, so Dol Yi closes the valve and tells him over the phone that he would have access to the remaining oil after he has been paid. Meanwhile, Sang Gu is injured during the police chase, breaking his leg, and is taken to the hospital. Man Sick, though, is adamant about continuing because someone sent him a photo of the new drilling site. Jibsei betrays them once more as Dol Yi prepares to greet Jian Wu, and opens the valves. Dol Yi manages to catch him just in time, punches him up, and then tears off the covert camera, in order to make Jibsei feel guilty for his betrayal. Counter, Gun Sab, and Dae Han all return. Together, they show Jibsei that Mr. Na had left his money for his son. Dol Yi meets with Jian Wu and instructs him on how to operate the valves. After tying Jibsei up, however, Jian Wu sends his men to beat them up, so he may collect the oil for free instead of paying them. Jibsei breaks free from his restraints, and aids Dol Yi in beating the men before fleeing. In order to get the squad out of the sewers and to the money, Dae Han employs a forklift to topple the container over. As the other thugs rush in from the outside at the same moment, Dol Yi waits a little longer in the sewers and threatens Jian Wu with the weapon he has taken from one of the knocked out men. Man Sick discovers them at that point, so Dol Yi distracts him by pointing the rifle at him, and ordering him to detain Jian Wu before escaping as well. Sadly, it's too late when he joins his team. Straw and his men have already taken everyone, before escorting Dol Yi and the rest of the gang to the pipe room, where they learn Man Sick has also been captured. The thugs beat Dol Yi as well, in addition to installing a bomb while he outlines his strategy. There are bombs on the oil reservoir behind the water tanks, as well. Jian Wu also opens the valves to fill his tanks. The pipeline will be destroyed when he sets them all off, cutting off the nation's main oil supply. The only vendors in the market will be Jian Wu's enterprise, because the reservoir will be out of service. Hundreds of people would die in such a massive explosion, but Jian Wu doesn't care as long as he gets paid, and it will appear that the explosion was caused by a botched mole theft. Dol Yi forces the team to kick over the welding machine out of desperation, and with the aid of a counter lighter, they start a fire that not only burns Dol Yi's back, but also sets the rope on fire. When he is free, Dol Yi grabs the explosives and throws it into a vacant utility passage, before jumping into the sewage to escape the blast, in order to follow out his plan and murder Straw and his men so they won't inform on him. Jian Wu also detonates the bombs at the tanks. However, the explosion isn't as large as he anticipates. Instead, the tanks simply release water. It comes out that Jibsei manipulated the valves while everyone was arguing, so that wastewater instead of oil was transported to the tanks. As soon as the team and Man Sick emerge from the sewers, the officer calls for assistance as they wait for Jian Wu and the thugs, who are seeking retribution, to show up. Another brawl breaks out, and they use everything at their disposal to protect themselves, including a forklift and an oil hose. Dol Yi assaults Jian Wu and makes plans to kill him, but Man Sick prevents him from turning into a killer rather than just a robber. When Man Sick's backup shows up, Everyone is taken into custody. 3 years later, the crew is now employed by their own shop after being released on probation. But when Man Sick pays them a visit, he discovers them drilling a wall in the basement, and doesn't believe them when they say they're working on the sewage. So a new quarrel breaks out like it did before. The end. If you like this story, please subscribe to the channel and like it to motivate me to bring you more stories like this.